but we'll get back to you on that.
Can you think of one instance in which what you ended up with is better than what you were seeking?
Well, I think, remember on the arms embargo and the missile program sanctions. Under the UN Security Council resolutions, which put those sanctions in place and drove Iran to the negotiating table, it was always understood that all of those sanctions would be lifted at once when Iran complied with their requirements under Luzon. We held out for more. I mean, interesting that some of the criticism on this deal, as well as the arms embargo goes out to 5 and then it's lifted, and then the missiles out to 8 and then gets lifted. That was actually extra measures put in place by the negotiators at the table, certainly led by Secretary Kerry, because at least 2 members of the P5+1 wanted the intent of the resolutions to be met in word, which was immediate.
But it was never the position of the administration that the arms embargo and the ballistic missile sanctions should remain, regardless of whether there was a deal?
Well, that wasn't our sanctions will remain in place.
No,
but the UN Security Council resolutions, which put those sanctions on, did so with the intent of driving Iran to the negotiating table, specifically over their nuclear program.
Right.
So it was always understood by all the members, P5+1 members, that as part of to have a deal without the sanctions relief, all of them,
right,
there would be no deal.
The problem that exists there is that those UN Security Council resolutions to which you refer, which are now been superseded by yesterday's, are stronger. They call for Iran to suspend or halt enrichment altogether. So when you say that, well, Russia and China wanted the arms embargo and the ballistic missile stuff to go immediately, they wouldn't have gone immediately because Iran wasn't in compliance with the terms of the previous resolutions.
They wouldn't go immediately until they had met their requirements with their
right. You're casting this as it's a U.S. victory or something that exceeds your expectations, that you kept the arms embargo in place for 5 years, when in fact, I believe the administration wanted it in place forever, but maybe I'm wrong on that, and the ballistic missile sanction and ballistic missile stuff for 8 years. So while you might be able to make the argument in your own, the administration might be able to make the argument that you got 5 and 8 as opposed to 0, why does it not make sense for critics to look at this and say, well, it went from forever or keeping them in place indefinitely to a set time period, which could even be shorter?
Because the only way they stay in effect indefinitely is if Iran never comes to the negotiating table and we never get a deal. The whole reason they were put in place was to drive them to a place where they would negotiate for
I get that, but the previous Security Council resolutions called for Iran not to have any enrichment at all. And now you're allowing them enrichment, and yet you're giving them this arms embargo and ballistic missile.
Look, I mean, Matt, right.
Okay. But you say that those are two things that you exceeded your expectations.
Yes, that's one example, and if you need more, I'm happy to provide that for you.